The UNESCO Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions affirms and undergirds the question of this debate. The Convention codifies the value of cultural expression. These inherent cultural values are a fundamental part of the human situation, but are difficult to quantify. The necessity of recognizing the distinct value of culture in the face of this difficulty explains why 148 nations voted in favor of the UNESCO Convention on Cultural Diversity, and only the US and Israel voted against the Convention. The Convention protects and nurtures cultural expressions that result from the creativity of individuals, groups, and societies, because those expressions are important vehicles of identity, values, and meaning. The explicit objective of the Convention is to reaffirm the rights of states to maintain, adopt, and implement policies for the protection and promotion of the diversity of cultural expressions. Because cultural goods convey identities, values, and meanings which are put at risk by forces of globalization and the resulting modernization of culture, we believe that it is vital to the preservation of all cultures that the international community acknowledge the right of nations, societies, and individuals to protect culture and have legal mechanisms available for this purpose. In this light, we affirm the resolution, namely that cultural activities, goods, and services should not be treated as solely having commercial value. To support this contention, I will first discuss why commercial value is insufficient to protect cultural goods, and then show the advantages of creating a distinct right to culture. Commercialization of culture. When culture is understood as only commercial, the final price at auction, the resulting hierarchical commodification devalues many forms of valid expression. Despite our impulse to think economically, lots of goods are devalued by seeing them as solely economic. Take friendship by means of analogy. A valued friend is important for many reasons that can't be expressed monetarily, yet there may be economic side benefits to having friends. But if you start to put a price on friendship, it taints the relationship. While art, music, film, and other cultural expressions are certainly commercial goods, an exclusive focus on profit and markets erases the non-commercial value of culture, the sublime beauty of the expression. Dr. Arjo Klammer, professor of economics at Erasmus University, explains, cultural values are those that have qualities above and beyond the economic and the social. He continues, cultural capital lends us the ability to realize a meaningful life over and beyond its economic and social dimensions. Further, markets cannot price the value of cultural goods because the economics views aesthetics, identity, and ethics as merely consumer preferences. And because culture doesn't have winners and losers, but markets do, cultures shouldn't compete against one another for space, recognition, and resources. This competition can drive ethic division, conflict, or what Huntington might call the clash of civilizations. Contention 2 is cultural capacity. If culture is seen as largely commercial, these minority cultures will continue to fall behind, while powerful and largely Western groups will leverage globalization to homogenize and diffuse the full range of cultural expression. The effects of this elimination of diversity is not solely aesthetic or subjective. Culture is a critical resource for political and social rights. The lack of cultural rights creates a vicious cycle that locks minorities in poverty. As Dick Stanley, Director of Strategic Research at the Canadian Department of Cultural Heritage, explains, culture embodies not only the past, but also the future. Culture provides a community with the symbolic resources needed to debate, contest, and oppose vital directions for collective social life. This is a definition of inclusion and participation in any democracy. The poor remain trapped in poverty because they lack the cultural resources to give voice to their needs. Culture provides the symbolic resources that people need to appropriate new meanings and skew them to their own welfare. As exclusively economic conception of cultural goods denies the validity of minority cultures because it can only offer tolerance. The affirmative position which affirms the right to culture and promotes cultural capacity creates the possibility of a radical and progressive expansion of citizenship. University of Chicago professors Arjun Appadurai and Catherine Steno explain, the very idea of cultural rights represents a radicalization of liberal social theory and moves significantly beyond ideas of tolerance. Cultural citizenship demands the sharing of state power in areas of law, language, and territory. Even a modern interpretation of cultural citizenship suggests the principle that genuine cultural diversity must be recognized in the public sphere. Both majority and minority cultures can flourish with a broader conception of the value of cultural goods. Without the continued support and development of cultural activity, and new and innovative creation will dry up. This shrinking cultural sphere, a cultural blank, creates sectarian divisions, break down social cohesion, and can even create conditions for war. Cultural expression, particularly art, is crucial for preventing these social breakdowns, according to Appadurai and Steno. Art is a depiction of where we've been, of where we are now, and where we're going, and it expands our horizons of thought. Because of these innovative horizons, art creates openings for pluralism. It can prevent xenophobia in the present and future generations through the expression of ethnic and cultural identity. These expressions enable a multi-generational focus on the future for cultural groups and society at large. Without this cultural vitality, societies tend to focus on the past, the histories that emphasize systemic cycle of conflict and fear of other cultures. This weakened cultural consciousness is dangerous because it hinders dialogues, consensus, and empathy between different cultures. Such regression creates zero-sum conflicts between different cultures. To recognize that one may have activities, goods, and services that hold more than just a monetary value is key to preserving culture, pluralism, and maintaining a focus on the horizons of possibilities of the future. Contention 3 is trade negotiations. The negative will likely object to these cultural values on the grounds that it somehow subverts global trade. This assertion is partisan. It is the position of the United States which enjoys market dominance in cultural goods. The argument also has the question of trade backwards. If all countries recognize cultural value as 148 have, the idea that cultural goods are hindrances to trade would not exist. Ignoring the UNESCO Convention, recent World Trade Organization rules and rulings regarding cultural products use economic value as the only meaningful measure of most products' worth. The conflict between the WTO and UNESCO, leading bodies of international governance, is a key stumbling block to the integration of cultural rights into trade norms and international law more generally. But culture won't go away. Only affirming culture's value can solve this conflict. Importantly, continued disagreement impedes the success of broader trade negotiations. Kevin Scully, JD, explains in 2011. The complexity of WTO case law makes the current U.S. policy of resisting the cultural exception incredibly risky. Continuing this chaotic battle would only needlessly antagonize the global community, and in light of the overwhelming worldwide popularity of the cultural exception, any victory the U.S. might win at the WTO could damage the trade regime's legitimacy. Only affirming the value of culture and its value will allow trade negotiations to move forward productively on issues that actually matter. In conclusion, cultural activities are the foundation for hope, for imagination, and for democratic citizenship, particularly for those most marginalized by the status quo. Commercialized culture drains our expressions of these aspirational possibilities. Returning to the words of Appadurai, the capacity to aspire is a cultural capacity, whose strengthening addresses the cruelties of economic exclusion. The capacity to aspire provides an ethical horizon within which capacities can be given meaning, substance, and sustainability. Absent such a horizon, freedom descends to choice, rational or otherwise, informed or not. Thus, we again urge the affirmation of the resolution that cultural activities, goods, and services should not be treated as having solely commercial value.